there's this presumption that this is just the way it is. I even mentioned that in my book. Right? It's like, there's three certainties. There's death, taxes, and a Microsoft audit. And you're going to pay through the nose on that Microsoft. They will find a way to get you. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Shift. I'm very excited to have Jeremy here today. For everyone listening, Jeremy Boerger is the founder and principal consultant at ITAM Coaches, where he helps organizations take control of their IT assets, reduce waste, and build stronger compliance strategies. With decades of experience in IT asset management, Jeremy is also known as the ITAM Coach, where he's guiding businesses to not only just cut costs, but actually build ITAM programs that create measurable business value. Before we dive in, for everyone listening, we host these as casual conversations. If there's anything that we go through that you find interesting, make sure to drop a comment below and we will make sure to respond to them, because we're going to go over sharing his story, the insights, and all the lessons of the excitement that goes on. And so how our flow works on the show is we start with Jeremy's backgrounds and what really inspired him to get into starting his own business with the ITAM coaches. And then from there, we're going to go into industry trends where we're focused on the IT asset management and technology that he specializes in. From there, we're going to get specific with his company and dig into what's been working well and the challenging part and the future of his business. And last but not least, we will be focusing on the future of where cybersecurity, technology, and he plans to take his own businesses. And you're going to get to hear all that right now in the next 30 to 40 minutes. So, last piece, for everybody that is new to the show, the Digital Shift is all about exploring how cybersecurity and technology leaders are adapting to today's evolving digital and cybersecurity challenges. And we love hearing from experts who are pushing the industry forwards, where we only interview C-suite and leads and owners of companies to make this the key source of everything when it comes to IT. So Jeremy, I hope that introduction did you well. If you wouldn't mind, just start off by letting us know where you're calling in from and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I don't think I can add much more to that, Darren. Thank you very much for the kind words. Yes, my name is Jeremy Boerger. I am the ITAM coach and coming in from very sunny Cincinnati, Ohio.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's sunny here as well, but you are on the north side while I'm on the south, where we're located here in Georgia. But don't be modest, let's go ahead and jump right in. So tell us a little bit about your role and how ITAM coaches really fits into the larger picture of organizations today.
Right. So I realized about midway through my full-time employment career as an asset manager and leader of teams and programs that I approached the issues of asset management a little bit differently from my peers. And uh, so I got some inspiration from a couple of really good, really trustworthy mentors. Um, Stephen Russman, who used to run the IBSMA number of years ago, and Sandy Conrad from Infotech. Not an endorsement, by the way, just a fact. Please don't sue me. Um, but those two really kind of sat down and said, "Look, what you're doing is unique. It's a little bit different. You should really pursue this." And as time went on, the idea started to grow and foster uh, some more thoughts around um, instead of being focused on just one entity, just one employer, we can take this idea on the road, have a number of clients that we can help at the same time, do it at scale. Because one, the problem isn't going away. And two, there's not enough people that can do quality IT asset management work for the demands that are out there in the world. So 2017, I incorporated, hung my shingle out on the door, uh, and haven't looked back. In the meantime, slowly but surely, we've been building our book of business. I wrote a book called Rethinking Information Technology Asset Management. That's not my title. My publisher did that to me. I apologize for the big long title that you got to search through. Yeah, it's been quite the journey. So,
And so when you're talking about, you've hung the shingle on the door, what was it the mentor that really kind of pushed you? What was that key moment where you were like, this is the direction I want to go?
well, okay. So, not to badmouth my former employer or anything, because it's I'm just not that kind of person to walk away. But I realized that there's just more opportunities out there. Really, I had a good lay of the land, so to speak. There's just, especially in 2017, there were so many more job opportunities for asset managers, software asset managers, inventory managers, configuration managers, just all over the place. And Employers and headhunters were just struggling to try to fill those positions. The salary was just continuing to go up and up and up. But the particular hospital I was working for at the moment, we had built a team that was able to save about $1.5 million out of a $15 million Microsoft EA. And it was great. I got some accolades from my direct supervisor, but the team was kind of left out. And as much as we tried to talk about them, and really, my reward was preferred parking for a week. And it's like, there's a lot more that can be done out there than just working for one person at a time. So yeah, that was really kind of the impetus, is that why keep yourself hitched to one wagon when there's so many other people that need this kind of help.
That's funny you mentioned that. I hear all the time, but like when influencers go to get food or something, they're like, "Oh, I'm an influencer," and they're like, "Well, influence your wallet to have more money in it."
Yeah.
So I totally got that reference. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So so walk us through what a typical day looks like for you.
Well, so I wake up, I brew coffee, I turn that coffee into content, and then walk out of my office back to my home. No. So a typical day is doing the things that any other small business person is doing. It's all the things, really. Everything from looking at invoices, uh, responding to requests for pay, sending out my own invoices, uh, trying to find the next new client, and in this day and age, also doing the marketing, doing the for free content, the for pay content, and all the other side projects like appearing on podcasts, scheduling speaking engagements for in-person events, and the like. So it's fun. But as a good friend of mine who's a serial entrepreneur says, when you work for yourself, your boss is a jerk.
Makes you work long hours, right?
It makes you work long hours. I had my uncle used to be a well-respected, rather successful dentist here in Cincinnati. And I asked him after I started my business, after I went this direction, so when does the 3 in the morning panic ever go away? And he just kind of looked at me kind of wistfully. He's like, Jeremy, I've been doing this for 40 years. It still wakes me up at 3 a.m. So yeah. And
All
it's
right.
that little voice in the back of your head that says, "Oh yeah, did you send that email? Maybe you should have worded it differently. Have you sent that? Have you sent that request for the proposal request? Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should tweak that."
And so when you do all that, do you use any automation or AI to help streamline?
Well, now we do. Yes. In fact, I've got a really good marketing person that is really, I don't want to say AI forward, but definitely has been leveraging AI to do the bulk of the work. Um, I know there are some topics that I know I want to talk about, and A lot of the major issues tend to be cyclical anyway. In asset management, about this time is when budgetary activity is primary on my client's mind. Um, what are going to be the cost increases? How do we avoid the budgetary failures from last year? Those sorts of things. So we want to talk about that. And then at the beginning of the year is when the software audits come out, and so we want to talk about that. And then after the software audits, it's about tooling. That's when that April, May, June. That's when all the neat new tools and feature sets start to come out. So we got to talk about that. And then at the end of the summer, there's usually a lot of in-person and educational activity that needs to go on. So we got to talk about that. And then here we are back at the beginning of the cycle again, talking about, well, what did you do to actually save yourself some money, and were you successful? And odds are real good you weren't. So let's talk about budgets. So the to go back to what your question was, um, that content we've already got built, but AI is very good about going in and tweaking it, making it sound new, uh, push it maybe a little bit different direction that we hadn't considered before, and then we take some human eyes and edit it and rework it so that it sounds more natural and more like me. On the other side, though, when it's net new, brand new content, the bulk of the copywriting can be done uh, with the AI. But again, I am very insistent on keeping that hands on. The topic, the bullet points, and the flow, but the highlighted major points, the minor points, the particular Jeremyisms, if you will, that need to come through. That's got to be done by me. There's just no AI that's going to be able to copy
Well, I mean, you are the ITAM coach after all, so they're looking for you.
that. That's right. That's right.
So
But that doesn't mean that I've got to do the entire lift.
absolutely. So let's shift that into industry trends. So when you
Mhm.
look at the industry of IT asset management, what do you see shifting right now when it comes to all these things like pushing towards cloud, SaaS, and AI tools?
Okay. So that's a very loaded question. So let's break that up a little bit, right? So the long-term trend is actually rather fascinating when it comes to let's start with the cloud and SaaS, right? Because when asset management and software license management first started, it was in the days of the AS400 mainframes, right? Once a week, a couple times a month, you would have to run a cycle count report and send that, mail it. There wasn't email. You would have to send that over to IBM, and IBM would come back and say, okay, well, here's the cost of this. And mind you, these were the days of the old dumb terminals with the green lettering, and you didn't even have a mouse. It was all line commands, right? Well, as the technology evolved, the computing load shifted from the centralized mainframes onto the microprocessors. The IBM 808 was well, let's say the 386. I know it was a little bit before that, but that's the 286 and the 386. Those were the processors that I cut my teeth on. So now suddenly the calculations, the heavy lifting is happening on each individual computer system. You still had to go and figure out, well, how is the software license? How does it get charged? How does it go? A lot of that was manual, but getting beyond spreadsheets, starting to do some centralized tracking of that. That's all well and good. Now to today, we have cloud and software as a service. That's still running on somebody's metal. It's not just some magical, crazy cuckoo land sort of thing. What it really is centralized servers somewhere away from your computing environment, but it's still licensed in the same fashion. It's either by computer, by the hardware, or it's by the user. And so we're really starting to see this shift, this swing back to centralized computing and centralized license management. Now the transformers show up. these chat GTP, these large language models, they have some pretty serious computing and power demands. So they are on central servers again in the cloud. How are those being licensed? Cycle counts. So much time, so much money per month. You get to prioritize where your queries go in the overall order of operations. And if you ask too many questions or run it too many times, you're going to get charged more. So we've gone completely around back to the old AS400 cycle counts.
So, do you think that companies are keeping up with those changes or are most still behind the curve?
Oh my gosh, really? That's the question you're going to
That's the
ask?
question.
No, it is in all things. Humans tend to build stuff that gets out of their reach a little bit faster than they suspect. And so yeah, there's a lot of evidence. This is not our first rodeo. Again, the introduction of the microcomputer, it took human beings a while to figure out, well, how do we monetize this? How do you do licensing of your software? Remember, with the AS400s, it was all self-contained. There were only some very well-trained programmers that could install this software, usually from IBM itself, and you didn't touch it. When the desktop computing started to come around, and you could load up darn near anything, there was no real control around it. But as times progressed, they started to build in some security, some passwords, authentications, what have you. Um, and we're still behind the times. Think about what happened with the introduction of Apple's iPhone and the bring your own device revolution that happened at the beginning of the century. Corporations were BlackBerry focused, and they did not know what to do with this new demand from their end users that said, I don't want what you're giving me. I want this thing. And so there was a rapid shift to try to figure out, well, how do we use this? How do we keep our employees happy by using this? And then what are the risks and legal obligations? Right after that, there was monetization. How do you, if you're going to push your data or your services onto this phone, how do the software publishers make money on that? It's the same story over and over again. And now we have bring your own license. There are particular tools that individual employees prefer to use. The output's still the same. In fact, the output is easily identifiable from anywhere. Doesn't matter the source, but you've got personal preferences from your user base that you then have to address and uh, uh, cater to, because otherwise, what are they going to do? They're going to take their talents to your competitors, and that's what you call a resume generating event, not just for the people that are leaving the corporation because they want to use a particular tool, but also for the person that said no.
I've never heard that before. A resume generating event. I'm going to
Yeah,
have to keep that one in the back of my head for
that
the
comes
future.
from the healthcare area, the industry. You can imagine what would classify as a resume generating event, but you're seeing this. It's again from the, if you remember your old ITIL uh, history and where the uh, information technology infrastructure library came from. The inspiration was the service industry. If you can't serve, if your product does not do what is asked for, if your data is not ready to be consumed by your target audience, you're not long for this world.
Well, and you kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier, but when you talked about, cost optimization kind of slips away from companies, and especially in regards to cybersecurity, how has that impacted ITAM strategies when you're working with customers?
Right. So that's a good question. The You've got a number of different facets uh, in that space. The And if you ask different people, they're going to give you a little bit different answer. For me, because of the siloed nature of most organizations, we do a very bad job of cross communicating. And I like to refer to it, this is another one of those Jeremyisms. There's the don't touch my stuff idea, that what you're doing in your silo is yours. Don't touch it. That's where my value is in this data. Well, the trouble is, and you can probably see where I'm going with this. Well, if you're not willing to share that, first off, why are you the one that needs to decide whether or not you share this data? This is the organization's data. This is being generated by patterns of business and other people doing work. You just happen to have it. Well, is it good? Is it trustworthy? Is it really useful? We don't know because you won't share it. And from an organizational perspective, that also speaks to a lack of understanding of how you relate, not just up and down in your authority stack, but also across the organization to other people that may also be doing this don't touch my stuff idea. That if you would just lighten up, you could actually combine some of this data and get more clarity in what's going on in the computing environment. And I don't want to sound like that this is just an IT problem. This is all facets. This is finance. This is manufacturing. This is uh, uh, accounts payable, accounts receivable. All facets of an organization can fall into this don't touch my stuff. So how does this impact ITAM? Well, ITAM, there's an important shift that's starting to happen in IT asset management. And we're getting away from the counting of things, the accountancy aspect, and getting more into data. I was at a ITAM summit down in your neck of the woods. Actually, I take that back. No, almost in your neck of the woods. It was in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And the concept that Remy was talking about, I can't remember her last name, she's going to hate me for this afterwards, is not IT asset management, but we are now technology asset and data administrators. And that our industry needs to start getting much more comfortable, not just with the accounting of stuff, the tracking of those assets through its life cycle, but also tracking data, regardless of its source, through its flow from creation to use to no longer viable. And that ta-da moment is really what we see happen. Now, in order for that to happen, and I'm trying to get to the end of your question, in order to get that to happen, we got to lighten up. Doesn't matter who controls what database and has what data. If that data is useful, it needs to be shared with the right people at the right time. But it also means that we need to reorganize ourselves. Too often, we see these centers of excellence or these cross tower teams that are built up, but they're not given any authority. They're not giving any decision making power. They certainly don't have any budget. What that really is a shift of accountability from the stakeholders to this group and doesn't do anything. So to summarize and try to get to your point, then there's a technology and data shift, recognizing how important that not just the data, but the data flow is. But at the same time, taking accountability and responsibility from the stakeholders, making sure that there is either a direct transfer that these people can be allowed to do their job, or the stakeholders accept their innate responsibility and accountability to keep that decision making and power and create an environment that these people can do their work. How was that for an answer?
That was a great answer. It was very well detailed, which I appreciate.
Well, I apologize. It's you wind me up and you can turn. I turn this into the Jeremy show in a hurry.
Well, it is the Jeremy Show. They're not here to listen to me. They're here to listen to you as the expert. So let's take all of that you just said and focus it on ITAM currently. So when you're looking at your company from your perspective, what is working really well right now?
So, yeah, what is working? I don't know. It's, when you're the small business person, there are days you feel like everything's just running fine, and then there are other days that it's the end of the world, and how do my kids get fed? Um, and with three teenagers, food is primarily on your mind. So what we do know is working is influencing. So if you're going to be a small business person, you have to now create and maintain a brand. You have to create content that's attractive to your potential audience and your ideal clients. You have to engage those people and very carefully. Really, I want to say you almost need to be a pest. But if you become the pest, then you're not going to get the business anyway. Somebody else is going to. So there's that fine line with that. And then having a monetized model on it. So not to give away the secret sauce, but I see a lot of my colleagues now starting to publish books, ebooks, and audiobooks. Um, but if they do that and self-publish, and again, turn it into a "don't touch my stuff." If you want to know what my thoughts are, well, you got to pay me for it. Well, I made the decision early on that my book was going to be a loss leader. We give it away a lot. Um, Ask me nicely on the street, I'll sign a copy and give it to you. I'm kind of proud of it, right? That's the way I am. But what's the purpose of that? Well, I would much rather change the industry slowly but surely. And then when an organization comes up and says, look, we've got this problem, we need to talk to the person that wrote the book. There we are. Um, so you've got to, again, as a entrepreneur, really focus in on what's your target, what do you really want to do, and where are your accessible losses in order to get to the larger, more productive accounts.
Is there a common thread that you see for what is most successful when it comes to building a brand?
That's a good question. I don't know. How's that? I don't know. Do I have a good brand? I like to think so. Some of the measures I've told are important tell me that we're doing pretty well. I just don't know. And again, the market, the zeitgeist will shift on you sometimes in a way that you don't even notice. And then you find yourself scrambling. For example, um, with LinkedIn content, it used to be surveys. They opened up the survey idea, and then everybody and their brother put in a survey, including, hey, do you like to fill out surveys? Yes, no, oh my God, leave me alone. And everybody started choosing C. And then all of a sudden, you had this great engagement, and then nothing. Um, so you've got to be careful with that. The first edition of my book, I did not release an audiobook. My publisher was very clear. Look, we'll do the paper, we'll do the PDF, but you're on the own for the audiobook. 5 years later, I still haven't recorded it. What do I get asked for? Well, do you have a copy of this in audio form? Because I don't have time to read. So yeah, it's there. You just don't know.
Okay, that's fair. And you also hinted at this a second ago. You mentioned metrics. So what metrics are you paying attention to the most right now?
Well, right now, primarily with for brand and audience, it's coming out of LinkedIn. We tried paying attention to Twitter or X. Um, Not a lot of traction there. Not a lot of interest coming out of Reddit and Facebook and Instagram. That's not where our uh, ideal client is receptive. Um, Facebook seems to be the really big, not Facebook, LinkedIn. Do we get to edit this in post? Pull that out. No. Um, LinkedIn is where a lot of the uh, online networking is happening and a lot of the brand building. The other piece, especially pre COVID, is the speaking engagements. I tour the country, tried to get to about 4 to 6 uh, events, conventions, expos a year, talking about asset management, educating the population on how important it is, what our technique does, why you should adopt it, all of that. Post COVID, it's been a lot more difficult. There's just not a lot of appetite for uh, the investment in the programs, especially from the larger organizations. Um, but there does seem to be this movement to micro certifications. Instead of having a big program that would cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's the individual practitioner that says, hey, if I'm going to keep my job, I need to sharpen up my skills a little bit. Do you got something for, 2 to 3 thousand? I can put that into my company's budget. It only costs me about 3 to 4 hours of my time, and then I'm off to the races. So you've got to be receptive to that. And you've got to be able to, the do everything, be everything, chief cook and bottle washer, to be able to pivot to that. So, yeah, definitely the online metrics from LinkedIn, the audience reception in person engagements, and then being able to, out of those, be very keen on where the next opportunity is going to present itself.
And so can you drill down on that a little bit further? So like as an example, when you're talking about audience reception, is that the average length of the viewing, the fact that they respond to the post or interact
Oh,
with
yeah.
the post, like what is that specific metric you're looking for?
Well, so if you go into LinkedIn, they will, even in the free version, because you can pay for more details out of LinkedIn. Um, but if you look at LinkedIn, a lot of indicators are you'll be able to see who's responding to your posts, whether or not they're making comments, what kind of uh, responses. They've got a little check boxes, cute little smiley face, thumbs up, thumbs down, all that stuff. Um, but folks that take the time to comment, that's a good indicator that there's a potential for dialogue. Can you get that dialogue going? Do you move that dialogue out of the public space and into a direct message? Um, do you have a connection? Those sorts of things. We do have a LinkedIn newsletter. We also have an email newsletter. And unfortunately, LinkedIn makes it very difficult to get good data out of that LinkedIn newsletter. So we leverage the newsletter in LinkedIn to push towards the email newsletter, which then pushes us into further dialogue with the interested party.
Gotcha.
So it's that trend. It's data, ta-da, going from, is this person just casually, oh yeah, that's a cute cat picture, let's go ahead and give it a thumbs up, to, hey, I'm struggling with this concept, I need something more than just a 5-minute video hit about, yeah, there's somebody out there that can do this, to full-blown engagement.
You would have full blown arguments with people saying that cats are the reason the internet
Yeah.
existed. They will
The internet
upload
is
all of
made
them.
of cats. It's a
Yeah,
series of tubes made of cats.
you got
So
it. So on the flip side, then, what has been the most frustrating or challenging concept that ITAM coaches have been trying to take over?
it's the education. It really is. We spend a incredible amount of time educating people on why this that ITAM is a problem for the organization, and why there are solutions for it. There's this presumption that this is just the way it is. I even mentioned that in my book, that it's like, you're There's three certainties. There's death, taxes, and a Microsoft audit, and you're going to pay through the nose on that Microsoft. They will find a way to get you, um, and it doesn't have to be that way. That you can build an organization or a program that will give you reliable and trustworthy data, be able to tell you what is part of your computing environment, what is part of your inventory, what's been lost and stolen, what's still on the truck waiting to come in, and then use that data to optimize these service agreements, these license agreements, and the like. But people don't realize that. So we spend a lot of time. It's like, yeah, there is this solution. It's just a matter of prioritizing that you can solve it and then giving it enough resources to be able to solve it as quickly as you deem necessary.
And so when you mentioned your marketing team is doing really well at that, how do you blend that marketing approach to getting them to understand to invest into something like this proactively?
Well, it's the concept of the buyer's journey, right? So my background is philosophy and military history. I am not technical, and sometimes you think that might be a deterrent because you're missing these skill sets. But the other hand, um, you tap into as a philosophy degree, you tap into kind of these other uh, areas of thought, uh, logic, ethics, um, and not the least of which is evolution. Really, evolution starts off as a philosophical concept, then morphs into a scientific reality. Um, and so one of the a kind of aha moments is the from two people. It's Carl Jung and the uh, concept of the hero myth, and Joseph Campbell and the hero of a thousand faces. That there is a commonality of a hero's journey that goes through very predictable, very definable stages. That's what makes a good myth. It's what uh, makes a good story. So, from a marketing campaign, it works very well to be able to know. You start off with someone that is new, but in their head, they're the hero of their story. So, how do you guide them through the process of realizing that they're on this journey to solve this problem, but then they need a guide to help them eventually fulfill where they want to go? And part of getting to that point of being a guide is convincing them that you are an expert, that you have value, and that you can actually help them get to the problem that they want to solve, that your interests are actually in parallel with your guide's interests. That's marketing. That's modern marketing. So take that, define the gateways that this journey is going to go through, and now you have a sales cycle.
That's great. That's almost word for word out of a couple of business books I've read this year. like spot on, like one from the other. It's great.
And I in IT, thievery is the sincerest form of flattery. So absolutely, I stole that from those books. It was one of the first marketing programs that I took. They started talking about hero myth and hero journey. It's like, oh, holy cow! I remember that. In my faith and inner journey class with um, Dr. Conrad back at the University of Dayton. Holy cow! It still applies. That's the importance of this, that concept also that I talked about getting out of the silos. Don't touch my stuff. Lighten up, Francis, because there are people out there that aren't part of your narrow worldview that are going to help you not just expand that view, but also help solve the problems that you're really frustrated with in the work that you're trying to do.
So let's take that into the future because I agree with you in regards to honestly, business concepts never change. It's the same core. It's just the little topping, on top is,
Yeah.
the different flavors. So when you're looking at asset management over the next year, What do you see changing in the future?
Ta-da! No. Um, good question, because that's getting ruminated a lot on right now, especially with the rise in popularity of the LLM and transformative AI. In asset management, we have been dealing with AI for the better part of 30 years. And the trouble is that right now, the zeitgeist, the decision makers, the popular thought is just enamored with this large language model. But they forget that that is not solely AI. That's just what you're calling AI. There's all these other tools that asset management has been dealing with, again, for decades. Machine learning, being able to take a uh, uh, PDF file, printed out file, like a volume license agreement or a service agreement, being able to scan that and pick out the relevant details so that you can actually read it, especially if it's a copy of a copy of a copy. There are pattern recognitions for threat activity. How do you know whether or not a piece of software is actually on your whitelist or not, or ought to be? Is it part of your shadow IT? Well, you've got programs that are looking at patterns of use and saying, hey, these people have a license, but these folks over there, they just installed it and they're going to be a risk of audit penalties. You got to decide what to do with it. Let alone, you've got your intelligent uh, network crawlers and port scanners being able to tease out whether or not this thing is a IoT device versus a full blown computer versus an operating system that whatever it is, and then how to organize those devices so that you can optimize your license agreement, the rights that you have to use, Monte Carlo playouts to figure out what the best solution is. We've been doing it for decades. But now we've got these large language models that just, I mean, really in the public's eye have just appeared. So to get back to your point, off my soapbox, I feel better now. So where's the things headed? Um, I do not see Chat GTP and the large language models being that big of an influence in asset management. That's just not what we do. Going forward, though, the Agenic AI, that looks exciting. And for those that have not come across Agenic AI, what it is a essentially a bot, a robot, a little piece of artificial intelligence that you drop into your environment and give it a task. And it is smart enough to figure out what that task needs to be, what's the optimal, efficient way of doing that task, and then does it. And will only call for help when it runs into something that it doesn't recognize. So, where do you see this really being useful? Well, right now, there are asset management and CMDB tools that are pushing into the low code, no code space. That you put together some blocks of logic and gateways that say, well, okay, so if you see this serial number and it's got this many digits, check these two up front and these two in the middle, that probably means it's a Apple device or it's a Dell device, and then figure out, cross-reference this other database to say was it made, when does the warranty run out, and what is the next replacement model of that device. That work would take months to put together by humans. But you program in a low code, no code tool these little graphic areas, and the machine is smart enough to build out the SQL queries and any other databases that need to be made in order to satisfy that result. So you can start to see activities like whitelisting of approved asset software catalogs being built automatically in a couple of hours. That would be a year project. Automating onboarding and offboarding so that the time to solution is hours, not weeks. That then reduces the inventory load that you have, which reduces the need for the dark capacity in the upfront costs of having that capacity available, knowing uh, which devices need to be deployed first. It's not always first in, first out, and the warehousing square footage costs to have all of those boxes just sitting there, not actually delivering useful value to the organization. So that's where I see that, and that's just two examples, right? There's all other examples that Agenic AI is going to be able to hit. So are they going to be ready in 12 months? Probably not, but we are really, really close. And certainly here in the next 5 years, you'll be reacting to a lot of Agenic, uh, non human created demands. And that's going to be exciting.
So shifting from that industry trend of the future in the next 12 months, taking all that and looking at your own business, what are you trying to achieve in the next 12 months?
I'm just trying to achieve retirement, honestly. No. So what do you need to do? Well, for us, um, our focus has always been on the data. Again, ta-da! For these agenic AI bots to actually be effective, they have to have trustworthy data. And in order to know whether or not the robot is actually being successful, you have to know what your asset lifecycle is. And for us, our method defines that asset lifecycle by way of data. We tell our practitioners the devices themselves will tell you where they're at in their life cycle journey. Take that data, put that into a bot, and now you've got a much higher probability and a much faster uh, uh, delivery result than you would have had if you just crossed your fingers and threw the bot next. So
So
that's where our focus is going.
so if you had like a magic wand that would fix one thing that you feel is holding back ITAM coaches and its programs, what would that one thing be?
I don't know. I'm going to push back on you a little bit because
Sure.
it's a fair question. It is a fair
Hmm.
question. Um, but being a person that is in the mix, in the middle of the maelstrom, I just don't know. My focus is really just to continue with the analogy. Where's that next wave coming from? Do I need to steer into it? Do I need to turn away from it? Um, how often do I need to make those decisions? I just don't know from a coaching perspective. Um, so I don't want to answer that question. I don't
That's
think I
fine.
can. I need a coach of a coach. Maybe that is the answer. Okay, so now I take back what I said and let's go ahead and answer that question. What coaches need are other coaches. And like Thomas Aquinas once said, beware the man of one book. See, there's that philosophy degree that comes out again. Beware the person that is just focused on a single thing, a single topic. You as a business coach, you as an ITAM coach, you as a data uh, methodology coach should have a coach yourself to be able to pull you up out of the maelstrom and say, hey, this is the stuff that you could be doing better. This is the stuff that you're worrying about that you don't need to. And here's the direction that you probably ought to consider. And that's something that, as especially new entrepreneurs, startups struggle with because they're too worried about being uh, staying alive and keeping the revenue flowing uh, than to actually keep that long distance vision. Right? I know certainly I've been guilty of
Yeah, and I think most people are, and I knew you had it in you because I I will say that that is very true, and I think a lot of people don't realize, like even multimillionaires and billionaires, they still have coaches because there's always someone that's at the next stage that they're trying to get to. So I think that's
that.
great.
Right. And it's very difficult to have an honest conversation with yourself. It is much easier to bring in a a third party, another set of eyes, uh, to see it from that, that distance, that disconnected approach.
Agree. So, are there any final words that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Hmm. Buy my book. Buy my services. No. Um,
I'll be doing a plug
no.
for you anyway at the end.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that.
Very good. No, it is. The thing that I tell everybody is that there are no insurmountable problems. There are no unknown. It might be an unknown solution, but there is a solution out there. We will figure it out. And if it isn't you, then one of your buddies is. And so talk about it. Big believer, follow the data, learn what the data is telling you. Because that's what humans are really, really good about is, you know, that next step, that next creativity. What is the data telling you? And then where is, how do you solve that problem that the data is warning you about?
So, actually trust the data.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that tongue in cheek just because there's so many people that will say, I'm trying this, it's not working. And if you look at the data, it's telling you it's not working. Like it's always funny where people are like, that worked. Like that's my best, LinkedIn post is this one that I put no time into that just happened to, and they're like, man, this other one I spent hours on. And so it's just very interesting to hear that. So I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yeah. Yeah. There is all of this wonderful stuff that is floating out. We do not work in a vacuum. And that's one of the things that I really try to hammer in on in my book. How many times do I get to say book on this podcast?
Like you're at 7.
But it's very important to know that there is other data out there that you wouldn't necessarily think is relevant. But as you start to see the association, there is a relevance. You can test that relevance. And then that might be the aha moment that you need in order to solve your problem.
Agree. So,
Yeah.
Jeremy, this has been absolutely fantastic. And I thank you so much for sharing all of your experience and perspective with us, because I especially like the IT asset management approach, which is an entirely different skew on cybersecurity and how all that works. So, from behind the scene principles to, making the big breaks in digital transformation, you've given us a lot to think about. And definitely there's going to be a book in the description. So please make sure, Jeremy, that you send me that. So when we publish this, we can get it out there. But for our listeners, if you have not already seen his website before, you can learn more about Jeremy and all the cool things that he's working on when you go over to itamcoaches.com. And that's ITAM, M as in Mary, coaches.com. And of course, thank you for tuning into the Digital Shift. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future updates. And until next time, keep pushing forward in your digital journey. Jeremy, thank you again so much for joining our show.
Thank you so much, Darren. It's been a pleasure. Good luck to you.
Right back at you. Hey there, it's Darren from The Digital Shift. I wanted to take a moment to thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the links in the description to learn even more information of everything we went over today. But if you enjoyed this podcast, then you are absolutely going to love this one. And if you're looking to look deeper into the technology that we go over in these videos, then go ahead and check out this one here. Regardless of which one you pick, you're going to walk away with something new. As always, I'll talk to you in the next one, and keep being awesome.